When you go to places that are historical, are you picking up does that open a gateway even more to
or do you want to? Do you try to pick up on stuff that you're interested in?
I really try to focus on the people, that are attending versus the place. But I had a really interesting situation where I performed, and I want to say this was in Missouri, of all places. And weirdly, there had been a death about 100 years prior to the night that I was performing. And it was an explosion in the theater that had killed a janitor 100 years prior to the night of me performing.
Right.
And that was such an odd moment because I could definitely feel like an odd energy, but it was just interesting that, of all times it wasn't like the Beach Boys weren't performing that night. It was a medium on the 100-year anniversary. So
did you pick up the explosion?
There had actually still been a part of the theater that was still damaged from when the bomb had gone off on 100 years to the night. So I think there's some element of coincidence that works through this, and just the fact that happened, I think, could have been
We've talked about this before. We've had John Edward on before, but I'm pointing to her, my daughter. Because some people listen and don't watch. But she has, I believe, the capacity to do what you're doing, but shuts that door so tight and doesn't want that, and it scares her. But we've had incidents where we stayed in a hotel. I won't mention the hotel, but it was in Vegas. Yeah. And she saw things. And then we found out that there was a suicide in that room of the kind of person that she saw.
But that's why I was asking the question that I had asked before. It doesn't seem like what I experience is the same thing I've heard from mediums who tap in to get messages or anything like that. Like mine is when it's happened to me in the past, very scary experience where I actually do see people or things moving or whatever it may be. And it seems very different than what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of wonder if there's a different thing that's kind of being tapped into there. Like when I, do readings, it's very much just trying to kind of connect to people from long ago, bringing forward, a whole menagerie of information. Whereas what you experience sounds almost more like a ghost.
Yeah, and there is a difference between the two, right?
There is, yeah. And there's people who will have, those visitations where someone will appear at their bedside, and that's very different than what I do when I do a reading, and so I think that there can definitely be spectrums of visitations.
Why is that different in the fact that you are... because I've seen you, and I've done a reading where you are communicating with somebody from the other side. Isn't that the same thing where are you not seeing the essence of whoever that was?
I generally will do a whole reading and often never even know what a person looked like that I'm communicating with. I basically just kind of get these subtle impressions and messages. What I think is that sometimes certain circumstances of certain passings, and they can even be of natural causes, can cause people to sometimes present differently on the other side. So if somebody still kind of holding on to some of their very human emotions and feelings, they might make a little bit more of a scarier visitation because perhaps they're looking for help or looking for attention. Versus when I do a reading, it's kind of more like generally everyone seems to be pretty good.
Do you ever get scared?
I get scared of living people more than the departed. I think people's capability to not show empathy is disappointing. So
it's a welcome to the world.
Yeah, right. The other side is much kinder, and I think they seem to really look back at their lives. They reflect at what really mattered and what didn't.